Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, Mr. Fused Fiction Hub, bringing you another amazing story. This is the next part of the story, 2 Feet Short by Garrett Wellist. Chapter 4, Toshinori let his Yuku call his mother in private. He knew there would be many tears and he didn't want any part of it. He agreed to pick up lunch for the two of them instead. He passed one of the students from the third-year students as he went and they seemed to pay no mind to him. The uniform would do well for hiding in plain sight. Not that he really was. A loud growl grew from the preteen's stomach the second he entered the cafeteria. He hadn't remembered his stomach being so demanding before losing it. Maybe he could ask Lunch Rush for something special since he didn't need a strict diet anymore. That thought stopped him dead in his tracks. He could eat whatever he wanted. He could have a big, greasy hamburger or a can of soda or maybe even a slice of cake. The possibilities made his mouth water and his stomach grew louder. He could have his favorite mango mochi or a bowl full of ramen, a slice of ham and an egg on top. He could eat anything. Ah, there you are, All Might. I was wondering when your stomach would call you over. Lunch Rush peered at him from the kitchen door. Help me finish up these rice balls and I'll give you something to chew on. There was a slight tease in his tone, but Toshinori didn't care. All he could think about was food. I'm also here to get Madrya something. He's having a difficult conversation with his mother. Toshinori passed through the door of the kitchen and stared at anything and everything as he spoke. Really? He could just get lunch with everyone else. Lunch Rush let out a sigh. But I guess he deserves it. With clean hands, the blonde began making rice balls, trying his hardest not to eat any leftover rice. The cook seemed to notice and openly laughed. I doubt I've ever seen you this hungry. Maybe I'll make you something special. Any requests? Now he had to choose. A hamburger would likely take a while and he wasn't completely sure if they had everything to go with it. Desserts would only make his stomach ache later, so he really had no idea. Well, if I was allowed, I'd leave campus and go to that American-style restaurant down the street. With another laugh, Lunch Rush placed the rest of rice balls into bowls and turned back around. I doubt Principal Nezu would let you just leave, especially like that. But maybe I can figure something out. Just wait outside while I get it ready. Are you sure it isn't too much? He didn't want Lunch Rush to waste anything he might have needed on him. Not at all, I offered. Now go wait for your surprise. Slowly, Toshinori left the kitchen and sat at a nearby table. Waiting, he scratched his nails against the table's surface, not exactly sure what he'd do while he waited. He didn't have his phone with him. That was packed away in his backpack. Where did he leave that? In the meeting room, right? He had walked out without it. Did they leave it? He hoped it wasn't locked inside. Maybe another teacher took it to the teacher's lounge. Who would do that, though? If he hadn't remembered to take it, then why would anyone else? The ex-hero shook his head. It would be fine. He just had to look later today. He didn't have much there other than a blanket and his essentials. If a student found it, they would easily be able to see his teaching ID and return it. He doubted anyone at the school would have a reason to steal from him. Toshinori was too deep in thought to notice the doors of the cafeteria opening, but by the time he looked it was too late. The students were rushing in, focused entirely on getting their lunch. Lunch Rush started serving the students and they sat down all around him. Someone never had the courage to sit directly across from him. He made eye contact with the orange-haired girl and immediately recognized her. She waved happily as Monoma and a few other students from 1B sat down. Hey, All Might Sensei. She took her first bite of rice. The younger boy sputtered in surprise. Sure, he didn't look that different, but it was at least a little strange to see your teacher in this state. How a broken bar. He looked between her and a few other students who held similar, casual, expressions. Oh, Sekijiro-sensei told us about it. She smiled again before frowning. Did you not get lunch yet? Toshinori returned her smile and shrugged. Lunch Rush has it covered. There's no need to worry. Young Monomi glared at him. Toshinori straightened in a bit of surprise before noticing that the glare was directed over him, instead of at him. Looking back, he could see the white and red hair of young Todoroki and young Ida beside him, chopping the air vigorously. He half-heartedly hoped the air would recover after the rough treatment. All Might Sensei, as Class 1A president, I can truthfully say that our class has worried for your well-being after hearing the news of your change. Is there any way I can help you? Young Ida practically shouted. I'm fine, young Ida. There's no need to worry and thank you for the concern. He didn't want the attention of the entire class, and if their worry started affecting their education, then he'd never forgive himself. Young Ida's next comment was interrupted by a pat on his back. Lunch Rush was shooing away the two students. You heroes need food to get stronger. Don't worry about All Might. With another apology, Ida left and Todoroki followed after giving Toshinori a very strange look. That goes for you too, Class B. Lunch Rush returned back to the kitchen, gesturing for Toshinori to follow. Saying a quick thank you to the students for giving him company, he leapt from his chair and ran after Lunch Rush. His stomach was annoyingly empty now. Now, for your special lunch. The cook made a point of being dramatic as he swirled around with two bowls, one containing katsudon, which Toshinori assumed was for Madrya, and another with a big, fat, greasy cheeseburger and fries than he had ever eaten before in his life. It made him dizzy with hunger. Now, having a stomach suddenly can be weird, I assume. But don't overeat. You can share anything left with another teacher or student. Now go get this to Midoriya and stay out of trouble. The cook wrapped the plate into containers and placed both into a bag for easier transportation. He was starting to sound like Gio. With a quick nod and praise, Toshinori ran out to deliver his lunch to his student. He just hoped the phone call had gone well enough. Izuku was dead silent when Toshinori returned to the room. He half wondered if the man had left, but once he spotted the taller male slumped in his chair, his heart fell. The ex-hero tiptoed inside and shut the door silently. Izuku, being the smart boy he is, noticed his presence and gave him a small smile. "Thanks for getting me lunch, All Might." His voice was rough and watery, as if he had been sobbing only minutes before. He likely had been, knowing the man. A service from one hero to another. He placed the bag onto the small table and climbed onto the tall chair. Opening the bag, he retrieved Izuku's box and slid it in front of the green-haired man. "Lunch Rush made something special for you." He almost whispered it, not sure how close Izuku was to crying again. Once the box was opened, the tears came again, along with a soft curse from Toshinori. Now, put those tears away, young man. You've had enough of that already." He stood up on his chair and rubbed at the other's scared cheek. "Let's get food in your stomach before you cry all of your calories away." Izuku laughed a bit at that and wiped away the wetness from his face. He took out his chopsticks and rubbed them together. "I'll have to thank Lunch Rush for making me Katsudon. I really needed it." "I'm sure you'll get plenty of time for that." The blonde boy smiled sweetly and pulled out his own box. He opened it and laughed when Izuku stared. "Don't be jealous, my boy. Can you eat all of that?" "Oh, right. You have a stomach now. That may change your appetite, especially changing to such a young age. You probably had a huge growth spurt when you were around the age, so eating a lot would make sense. You were pretty thin before, so more fat foods could be really good. Did your earlier form even affect this one, though?" Midoriya continued to ramble on and on. "Eat before it goes cold, my boy." Toshinori remained as he slipped a few fries into his mouth. The taste was heavenly. The grease and salt mixing with the slightly soft potatoes made every taste bud on his tongue dance. He ate a few more, enjoying them to the fullest before picking up the cheeseburger. It was difficult to balance in his small hands and even harder to stretch his jaw enough to fit the length of it inside of his mouth, but the result was more than worth it. He could almost hear the juice when he bit down. The sharp taste of pickle and onion balanced so beautifully with the sweetness of the meat and tomato. The buttery bun was like a cherry on top. After some processing, he decided it needed the extra grease, and added a few French fries between the bun and tomatoes. The next bite was even better, if it were possible. By the time he had finished his lunch sent from the heavens, he was a mess of butter and condiments. Wiping off his hands and face, he turned toward his student and caught the other smirking. "I would ask if you enjoyed it, but the noises you made were proof enough." Izuku held a sly tone and it made Toshinori blush. "Noises? It's nothing to be embarrassed about, though. I mean, you've been eating oatmeal and tea for the past 6 or so years. You deserve something good." Izuku's smirk was replaced with a genuine smile. Looking down at his hands, Toshinori smiled softly, still a little embarrassed. "I won't tell anyone about you crying over Katsudon if you don't tell anyone I ate like a starving wolf." He showed a smirk of his own. The way Midoriya sputtered made him giggle. "I wasn't crying over Katsudon," he protested. "Too easy to tease." "Then why were you crying?" He knew the conversation would have to happen sometime soon. Losing his smile, Izuku sighed and pushed his phone further away on the table. Mom was stressed. Is stressed. She was mad that the school hadn't told her sooner and she almost marched her way over here. She said that she at least wants me to sleep over there tonight, just so she can see me. She also invited you, since you're stuck with this too. It took Toshinori a few seconds to respond. "Me? Sleeping over there?" He had barely visited for their weekly meetings. "She said we could make it fun, build a pillow fort in the front room and everything." Izuku supplied. If the blonde hadn't known better, he would have thought the boy man was now trying to convince him. Good thing he knew better. "If she's willing then I'd love to." Toshinori smiled again before rubbing at his neck nervously. "Although, I can't say I'm any good at sleepovers. I had never been invited to one in my youth and well, I wasn't an engineer at that age either. Or, this age, I guess." Izuku immediately perked up. "That's okay. We can both do it. Although, we'll need enough pillows and blankets to make a decent-sized fort. Since I'm taller and bigger, we may have to use a few couch cushions. Maybe I could look around for some tape or pins to help. I don't want books falling down in our sleep." Or would it be easier to tie the ends of a broken bar? Tuning out the sound of Izuku's muttering, Toshinori thought about the last time he had an experience like that. He was with Nana-sensei. After his parents had essentially abandoned him, She took him in until he was discarded into a foster family. Those few days were some of the best he'd ever had. That was also when he started seeing his master differently. She started addressing him by his first name and she insisted he use hers as well. She became a mother. The warmth he felt was ripped away by Gran Torino's words after the day she died. "Boy, whatever you thought that woman was to you, she was just a teacher. You were a fool for thinking her anything else." The worst part was that he couldn't prove his old teacher wrong. Nana was dead. She couldn't tell him herself whether she really cared about him the way he cared for her. Toshinori startled when a hand nudged him. "All Might?" Izuku gave him a concerned stare. The blonde smiled. It felt a bit more force than it typically did and he moved on. "No point in dwelling on the past. Let's see if Nezu had anything for us. You will work as an assistant teacher to whoever needs you. I have assigned you a few classes to start with, but you have the liberty to choose as you wish after that." Nezu sat happily at his desk, offering both middle-aged boys a cup of tea. "Yes, thank you, Nezu." It much better than wandering the halls of like he had expected. "Just give me the list and I'll begin immediately." He held back saying his catchphrase. It could get excessive, even to him. "I don't plan on this being a permanent arrangement, similar to your condition, but it will do for now. Your first class is tomorrow morning." Nezu passed the pact to Toshinori and interlocked his padded paws. "That will be all for now. Thank you again, Nezu." The younger boy made to stand up but was stopped. "Not so fast, All Might." He turned to the green-haired male once Toshinori was seated again. "Now, Midoriya, I'm aware your mother requests your presence later today, but I think it best to continue your stay here at I have found no problem with your age and your continue attending as a student. You may ask a fellow classmate for what you have missed today. I want to continue learning, even if I'm older than everyone else for now, but can I still spend the night with my mom?" It sounded strange coming from a grown man. "Of course, I understand the comfort you may need at home and I respect that. I also ask that you do some discovering with your quirk as well. There's no telling what a changed body may do to an ever-changing quirk like One for All. I didn't even think about. It could be so much stronger than I'm used to and I could easily break my arms if I'm not careful." "What I've broken bar," Izuku continued to mutter to himself and took mental notes. Toshinori stood again. "Thank you again, Nezu. I promise to help Midoriya in any way I can." He pulled Izuku out of his muttering trance and toward the exit before Nezu decided to start a monologue. "There is no need to thank me, All Might." They exited just in time to avoid another question by the mouse. Thanks for listening to this tale. Make sure you comment, like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.